The Boys Season 3 just came to an end. I don't believe it's a hot take to say that, even with the mildly divided opinions on its finale, this was the grimiest, angriest, strongest season of the show. They kept pushing many of our favorite characters to their limit, had plenty of plot twists up in store, and maintained the pacing of the season at a high speed, without ever making it feel overwhelming. I personally have always enjoyed this show a lot. It is prime entertainment, and I don't mean that as a slight. On the contrary, I love my serious, brainy dramas, the ones with amazing technical aspects and highbrow narrative, but sometimes I also want something that's fun and fast, but that also respects my intelligence and has great characters to push the story forward. And in that regard, there's no show nowadays that does that better than The Boys. I'm saying all that because, as much fun as this was, I think the show hit a new peak in the middle of the season. One that truly elevated its storytelling and had an execution that, frankly, I've seen only on my favorite shows of all time. As you're probably imagining, I'm talking about episode 6, Herogasm. Now, if you're here, as always I want to warn you, for me to talk about this in detail, it's unavoidable, there will be spoilers. And also because you most likely already know what I'm talking about. Probably the most hyped episode in the show's history, and one that, to the shock of myself and everyone else, ended up delivering way more than promised. We expected a lot of naked bodies and dick jokes, and we got instead this show's version of the Red Wedding, an episode that horrified us, broke down our characters and the audience in the process, and closed many plot threads that started not only at the beginning of the season, but also way back in season 1. I truly believe this episode is The Boys at the best it's ever been, and in some ways what it was building up to all this time. The question now is, what makes it so special? Well, that's what I wanted to break down today. This is The Pretentious Writer, and I'm here to talk about not only why Herogasm changed everything, but also why I think it's the show's magnum opus. Before I go into the nitty-gritty of the plotting itself, the first thing I have to mention is that it was the perfect storm. The showrunner saw an opportunity to have many plot lines converge on this episode, and they took advantage of it. It's quite baffling when you break it down and realize that, with very few exceptions, every scene in this 1 hour counts. We either have an important moment to establish a new situation or setting, a development of the situation, a character moment, or a payoff. Hold on to this last one, I'll come back to it in a second. This makes the show, which already has a breakneck pace, feel like more things are happening than usual, but simultaneously, it's all organic and it never feels rushed. Every scene counts. And you might be hearing that and thinking that sounds like an obvious and slightly dumb catchphrase, am I right? After all, no one writes a script looking to stuff it with filler, or leave the audience feeling like they're wasting their time. But to actually execute it, make it happen, that's a whole art in itself. Many times we need boring moments, we need filler scenes, or even an episode to bridge and connect certain plot lines, to make them go through the necessary development, so that when they eventually arrive, they hit as hard as they can. So, the fact that Herogasm finds the shortcut of never being boring, slow-paced, while also being filled with nothing but big moments, as an amateur screenwriter, I gotta say, that is insane. The second main thing that made it so special was that, for all the twists and turns, it never forgot character. And when you stop to pay attention, everything happening here is kinda about them. It's about Starlight deciding that she's done with this hero society that she's been a slave since the beginning, and as cheesy as this sounds, embracing the hero inside of her. The true, actual meaning of hero. It's about a man confronting Soldier Boy and coming to terms with not only his wish for vengeance, but also deciding to not let his bloodlust blind him, and realize that no, he's not gonna be like Butcher. It's about Homelander looking himself on the mirror, literally facing down the devil inside of him, and finally being put to the test. And I could go on and on here. These are all characters we've grown attached to in some way or another, and the fact that the show remembers that and uses the insane plot throughout this 1 hour to challenge and make them evolve is the thread that keeps everything together, that makes every crazy development in this episode hit, as I said before, as hard as possible. Another thing that made this episode so great was the payoffs. Remember what I said a minute ago in this video? There are so many payoffs in this perfect storm of an episode, it's honestly shocking. Apart from the ones I've mentioned, like MM facing off against Soldier Boy, albeit briefly, to Starlight finally giving a middle finger to Vought, We also have stuff that was teased since the start of the show, and that frankly I have forgotten, like Huey's beef with A-Train. It's obvious Robin's death still haunted him, and being strong now would definitely empower him to finally punish A-Train for that event. But the crazy part is that another payoff was already happening, A-Train being on a path of reflection and rethinking his actions since the beginning of the season and the events with Blue Hawk. Of course, it wasn't entirely genuine and, as Ashley pointed out, a bit hypocritical, but for the first time, he was really, actually reflecting on who he was and what he had done. That turned a tense exchange that we waited so long to happen into a tough heart-to-heart between both characters. It's not easy for any of them, yet it never felt fake. It hit the right spot because now we had some sympathy for both parties. And the way these two subplots interconnected was, in my opinion, complete genius. A-Train also got his moment with Blue Hawk, a moment that I suspected had some heavy symbolism behind it, and there was, because apparently the way he killed him was the way folks used to lynch black people back in the slavery days. They would tie their feet to a horse and ride for miles until they were left disfigured or dead. So, yeah, heavy as fuck, but very meaningful as well. Also, Newman finally showed her true colors to one of our main characters, and the whole Frenchie subplot crashes with Kimiko and they get some closure. Also, the rift between Annie and Huey, something that was boiling since the beginning of the season, finally tears wide open. And it's a sad moment because among all the shit show they've been thrown into, they always had each other's back. It's made even worse by the fact that you might pick a side, but nevertheless, you understand where both are coming from. And do I even have to mention the face-off? The thing that we were waiting for since the beginning, the moment where Homelander would meet his match, happen, and I don't think I can say anything that others haven't already said. It was unexpected but so well done. It's so interesting to watch the little nuances in each actor, from Homelander mixing his usual anger with a bit of desperation every time he receives a new punch, from Butcher's entrance to his unhinged grin that has been deservedly mean to death already, to Huey's not that unexpected but still really cool entrance, and even that final moment that makes you question, even if it's just for a second, that they are actually gonna take away Homelander's powers. Fanservice has kinda gotten a bad rap these days, but I personally believe that when it's done right, strategically and tastefully, it's just so fucking cool, and that was exactly what happened here. I gotta praise the entire cast and crew involved in creating it, they really knocked it out of the park. And a final touch that I really appreciate is that the show doesn't shy away from the fallout. There's no victory march, they made Homelander cower, but at what cost? The group is split, a bunch of innocent people were harmed and killed during this incident, and they're left to pick up the pieces, culminating in two amazing payoffs that I mentioned before. First, seeing MM truly deny Butcher's path and just decide to be better. And second, the literal mic drop moment where, after 3 seasons of being screwed over again and again by the Seven and Vought, Annie decides to not only use her platform to expose everything that's happened there, but also drag them, Homelander, and Soldier Boy down the mud. A moment that, by the way, directly parallels the opening of the episode, where we see the Imagine video parody, the show clearly criticizing the shallow and vapid way social media has been used nowadays. However, this moment comes and shows that yes, social media can also be used for good, especially if they're delivering a message as cathartic as, "I'm not Starlight anymore, fuck you all." Screen goes black, credits show up. And that is how you end an episode. There's so much payoff here, and the fact that they all happen inside this 1 hour organically feels kinda like a wizard's trick. It's such a testament to its quality that even the finale of the season felt like a disappointment to some. Not because it was bad, but because it was just very good. Because it was being pit against this titan of an episode, one that almost broke down social media in the process. It's so good that I've been talking about its qualities for 10-15 minutes? And I still haven't even elaborated on the Homelander scene at the mirror, a moment in which we not only see how far gone he is, but also a peek into his subconscious and what makes him so insecure. The reason why I said in the title that this episode changed everything is because it truly did. The status quo of this universe is gone forever. Homelander has been bruised, a reminder to a god that he bleeds, and neither he nor Butcher will ever forget that. The boys' dynamic will never be the same, be it for good or bad. Annie is not Starlight anymore, and the consequences of her exit from the Seven will without a doubt influence events in Season 4. But beyond the plot and characters, in my opinion, this episode also elevated the storytelling of the show. As I said in the beginning, I've always enjoyed The Boys, but Herogasm felt like a watershed moment in its history. Like Erik, the showrunner, and his team wanted to grab all the themes they've been building up so far and have them all crash down in a single place. The result was 1 hour of crazy, tense, insightful, yet unbridled fun TV. I'm really excited to see what Season 4 has in store for us, and if they can even match the highs of this season, and more specifically, this episode. I can imagine The Boys ending its run as a true cultural phenomena. Something like Game of Thrones that carried critical and popular acclaim. With the difference of a good ending, obviously, but we don't know how long this show is gonna last, so in the moment, it's all up in the air. But it's thanks to amazing stuff like the ones I mentioned during this video that, for now, I feel very confident that they'll deliver. And what about you? Do you feel the same? Do you think Herogasm elevated this show to something greater? Are there any other details and observations you have about this episode that I might have missed? Also, what did you think of this season overall? As always, like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments. And as always, thank you for watching. This has been The Pretentious Writer. See you next time.